All adults is witchcraft. And I have to wonder sometime
Oh my gosh. I like how he ends it so strong and like just waiting for the kids to do what the Pokemon cards say and what the Pokemon cards say. It's just I think it ends with spitting acid.
all these role-playing games, and especially in Pokemon, is to become the master.
When was that from?
That's wild.
I'm guessing the 90s or early
Right?
2000s, especially that quality kind of video.
Yeah, it had to have come out like when Pokemon came out. I'm just like, I feel like when it was big and like banned from so many schools, but I feel like it got banned from schools not from witchcraft, but because people are trading and crying and becoming dramatic and focused on that in that school.
I saw this meme that was so true, was saying that Pokemon was what was that generation or our generation's first introduction to the stock market. Right?
I could see that more than witchcraft.
Stock market?
Yeah, because you're buying, selling, and trading
and predicting what's going to be valuable and like
yeah.
I get like that side, but I don't get the satanics. I love my favorite is him hating on like the elements, like literally just elements of the earth, like
earth, wind, and fire.
Elements of magic.
When are you too old to enjoy your hobbies? Because recently I saw a video where Henry Cavill was on the Graham Norton show, and he talked about his interest in computer games and painting Warhammer figurines. And I guess, Graham Norton being Graham Norton, he was, busting his chops. And some people on the internet took it as Graham Norton sticking up for the old ideals of masculinity, where if you're not a man, if your hobbies aren't shooting, drinking, and watching a game of rugby or football,
Yeah.
And so it brings up the conversation, like, when are you too old to enjoy your hobbies?
I don't know. I think our generation has evolved in that mindset that like there's just this shift in culture and thought around being quote unquote too old for something. I think we still mature in a way, like as adults, like, paying rent, getting jobs, moving out, things like that. But, I think going to Comic-Con or different just anime cons in general, or going to music festivals, or I don't know, doing puzzles and coloring books, and like, I don't know, there's all kinds of different things that like as an adult is different. I will say the specific thing about MMORPGs, like that video game, like I played World of Warcraft for about like 5 years, and I was an extremely dedicated, it like took my middle school years, like every day after school, before school, like it was like a huge part of my life. But I loved it, but I had to like completely stop playing it to like be able to deal with stuff in real life, not just like my online virtual life. But when I have gone back to it, because I've played it since middle school, but like I played it for like a few months, and I'm like, wow, this is like so fun that I could literally play this like all the time. Like this is it's pretty legit. It's even better now, But like, I don't know. There's a certain something in me that's like, I have a partner. We have a schedule. We have stuff that we want to do. Like especially on the weekends when I would have time to play video games, it's like, that's usually quality time that I'm spending with him, or investing it with friends, so in real life. So it's like, there's a trade-off there that right now this is winning, but in past life, this other side's won too. It's like but I don't regret like all the time spending like all the time I spent playing video games. I just like, I don't know. It's because I made real friends from that, like MySpace friends and like pen pals who I would do like MySpace, dude.
MySpace.
Like literally, like people, you would be in a guild with people, and then if you raided with them long enough, like for a few weeks or months, whatever, then like I was like, dude, we should just add each other on MySpace so we can actually communicate like normal fucking human beings. And then it's like you see what people look like, and you're like, what the fuck? For real, it's like such a fucking trip. It's like a whole bunch of like dweebs from all over the country or all over the world, you know.
Yeah, actually, I still play a lot of Destiny 2 or just video games in general. Whenever somebody, I'll show them like my my Instagram or my YouTube channel, because my name's already out in the open. It's too late for me to undox myself, but it's people are always like, "Oh, you're Asian? I never thought you're Asian." I guess it's from the way I speak. And when you finally meet somebody in real life, it's just like, wow, that's crazy, right? And that's a good thing about video games. Like a lot of the people that are in my clan that I play with on Destiny 2 or just play with in general, I have met some of them in real life. Like two of my friends, I actually paid for their ticket to go to this anime convention with me. Like I was playing, I was doing like PvP or something. I was like one night and I was like, hey, there's an anime convention this weekend. You want to go? I'll buy both of your tickets. They came, picked me up, and we went. It was a good time. And it's great that these games are here so we can forge this kind of friendship and bond.
Absolutely, just like anime,
Yeah.
I feel like even just Demon Slayer alone, it's like getting together, going to watch the movie together. It's awesome. I also think games like Pokemon Go help a lot with that too, like community-oriented events. Where it's like you're literally meeting strangers to complete challenges that you need to complete.
Yeah, but back in high school, that shit was different, man. Like Laura, like back in high school, people were playing Pokemon cards and Yu-Gi-Oh and all that stuff, but it wasn't too much out in the open. I know a lot of kids played Magic in the band room.
Yeah.
And everybody knew about that, but nobody really went inside.
Well, us band geeks were in there. Rude, Eric.
Oh yeah, I forgot about y'all. But it's like during lunch they would play Magic there, and I never got into Magic because I was never really a fantasy guy. I was more into sci-fi and all that stuff. But
that's so funny. I feel like it's such a crossover. Like for me, I like fantasy and sci-fi, but like I do see where there's a distinction. I just feel like it's I don't know. It depends on the direction. There's some even that I feel like could in theory be both, depending on what direction they go.
Yeah, because magic is science and science is magic.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And
there's like a quote I always like that's like all religion, arts, and sciences are different branches of the same tree. And I feel like it's just how you interpret stuff. You know what I mean? Like it just, some people like everything is like magic if you don't know how it's done,
Totally.
Yeah, man, Dark Ages. But I just thought it was kind of ironic that one time one of our buddies, I'm not gonna name his name, but he walked into the band room during lunch and yelled out, "You guys are a bunch of fucking losers," and walked out because they were playing Magic. But we all secretly played Pokemon in the back. You know what I mean? It's like we were.
Well, that, and I also feel like all you guys yelled stuff like that for anything, even if it was something cool. People were like talking shit, like at some point. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't exactly like.
It wasn't harmful, but it could have been. You know, I mean.
Wait, what? Like he was such a bully, he'd be like
he wasn't like I mean like, I wouldn't say he was a bully, but he was like he just like
I wonder if I'm thinking of the same person.
I think you are thinking of the same person. But it was different back in high school. Like I wasn't really out and open about my nerdy and geekiness until like senior year of high school when I started throwing all the parties, and then people snuck into the house to use the bathroom, and they go into our room and they will see my computer and my whole anime collection. And then people are like, "Oh, you're into anime and stuff?" I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh, it's okay. You're Asian. You get a pass." I'm like,
"Oh my God."
I'm like, "All right, that's cool."
I didn't know about this until right now, but that's the Valleywood. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'm sure this is the same for you, right, Lance? Like back in the day, you're a man, you played football, or you did other kind of sports.
Yeah.
You drank beer on the weekends. Totally wrong, but it was just a different time back then where geek culture wasn't popularized until like now.
Yeah, I think there's definitely been an evolution of like, yeah, just what's allowable. Also, what's come to the mainstream culture. I think things like Netflix has influenced our generation and brought a lot more, variety to people's, content.
Yeah.
And really had to like before, if you were going to Blockbuster or to Hollywood Video to like rent a movie or a video game, you were definitely staying in your lane because you were spending money each and every time that you had to go to the store,
And you're like putting yourself out there, like you have to like be out there in public picking something, it's like checking it out with someone, taking it home versus like being in the comfort of your own space.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's a whole different type of feel versus now, people can be like, oh, I always really liked this anime growing up, and it was the only anime that I ever watched, but I found it on Hulu or Netflix, and so they watch it and they kind of re-fall in love with animation, and then next thing you know, they're like into Demon Slayer and fucking DBZ and everything else, So I don't know.
Well, DBZ was like everybody's intro to fucking anime, right? Well,
Because it was
DBZ
like
and
on
Pokemon.
mainstream like channels and stuff. Like
Zoids as well. I feel like as a kid, like I fucking loved that show on the Cartoon Network. I thought it was so sick. And then I watched it as an adult recently, like maybe like 6 months ago, and I was like, oh my god, this is horrible. This
This aged poorly.
It's
there's a bunch of stuff like that, like for sure, that you grow up with and you like remember it as great, but you finally rewatch it and it's like, oh god, what were we learning?
Cowboy Bebop as well. Like I definitely watched that with my cousins in like 1998 or 1999 whenever it came out. I don't know. Anime's always kind of been anime video games. It's always kind of been a part of, how my growing up was. I mean, my mom will tell you, and she'll be the first, because like Pokemon and Harry Potter taught me how to read 110%. Like
For sure.
those two things working in conjunction, like getting released at the same time, Pokemon first and then Harry Potter naturally after. It's like I was hooked on phonics.
For sure. I feel like there needs to be more of that, like whatever version it is. Like there's so much that like there's so many things out there to like get kids into reading, but there's like so little encouragement of kids just continuing to read whatever they're into. Like I feel like there's so many adults that want them to read specific things or like in a specific way, but like it's finding their passion and their interest and then like that stuff growing. And I feel like that goes back to like the hobby thing. Like I don't know, Eric, I think what the question you're asking is very much like generational based. Like we were talking before about like what changes and how every generation changes. Cause I feel like our generation is doing a better job. But I do also think that previous generations have kind of laid that groundwork that like there was nerd culture being more accepted slowly but surely as we like got to us. And I think now like looking like on Generation Z, is that the younger ones? Yeah, the Generation Z, like they're even more so. Like it's really interesting to see them like embracing the mom jeans and like the, like learning all these different like things. Like it's funny them rediscovering old shows that were like classics to us, but like, it's just, I do think that I don't know what is cool keeps changing and what is nerdy keeps changing, but I do like that we're kind of deconstructing what is like acceptable and what is normal and like what people have to like. And I think we're kind of recognizing the bias of where that originally came from. Like a lot of like what we've talked about in other stuff, it's like what was cool and what was acceptable is because it was like heteronormative or because it was like the like just whitewashed and like, acceptable to a certain group. Like there's so many things like that whatever group it was, like it was acceptable to some. And then they kind of like had the power enough to make it like, this is what's cool and everything else is not.
This is the perfect image, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like, I mean, this is taking it in a whole different direction, but I feel like as a gay man who grew up watching gay porn that was mostly white, like twinks, and like, it was very like either that or like you have like ebony or whatever, like black, you know? But it's, I don't know, it's just a very different thing than just like seeing normal mainstream gay black people in your day-to-day life, you know?
For sure.
Or just seeing other men, like seeing men of color as attractive in my adult life. I had to kind of unlearn some of my biases, you know, that I had growing up, because I feel like we do put white people on this pedestal as like, oh, like that's the person that you like should be with or should be attracted to or whatever. And I think that that's a very like learned behavior. And it's something that like Jerome and I, my partner, we talk about it like often, of just like, you know, how we were able to move past that. Like, yeah, of course, like it's okay to have preferences and people that like, you know, you want to be with or be in a relationship with or have sex with, but there's like a certain like line there, you know, between like preferences and like straight up like racism, fat phobia, like.
So like getting off the porn side, but just in like the mainstream side.
We went from fucking Pokemon to porn real fast.
Because there's okay, all those are hobbies, y'all. First of all, and second of all,
sometimes they're mixing together, man.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. You're
shout out to Woody Rocket.
Well,
Gosh,
I still think
that should be a show. It's like looking at your porn history with Eric Cypresser.
Oh man, I'll show you my bookmark collection.
My bookmark.
Oh, I'm feeling a little festive today. Christmas porn. Here we go.
Oh, okay, Christmas, like Hallmark. Eric and I always talk about Hallmark movies, or we like have these running jokes about Hallmark movie moments. Like Hallmark movies are a whole other level, but I also think all movies do this. Marvel movies, like any of the like mainstream movies, you can kind of see.
Like Lifetime are like on the same.
Yeah.
Page. Yeah.
They're like the worst of all of them, like of how certain groups, like whichever ones in power, tend to be like they just play the stereotypical role, the white hat, black hat, like whoever's supposed to be the good guy or bad guy, like, you know, it's
very stereotypical.
Yeah.
like
so
extreme. It keeps reinforcing that if you keep seeing that.
Yeah, because they play to an audience who still hold on to the core beliefs of how America used to be or how they wanted to be. Going back to what Lance was talking about earlier about how he was, you know, had to relearn how to be attracted to different type of men. And I was just thinking about how for different men of color, when we think about becoming an actual real American, we think about marrying somebody who's not just an American, but like usually white. Usually marrying a white person kind of opens the door for your bloodline to be, you know, a real American. And relating that back to our talk about Pokemon and hobbies, it's just like the way we build our idea of America is based on what was made in like the 1920s or during the post-World War II era, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's also funny of the idea of being a real American, being a white person, like they didn't immigrate to. Like I was talking to my grandpa about that recently because my aunt was telling a story and she was talking about a friend of hers where they had just celebrated a birthday or there was some party that she went to. And he gave this speech at the end and he was talking about some of his time before. I can't remember what country he was originally from. It was somewhere in South America, but he had this really lovely, amazing story. My aunt like retells it and talking about like him and his sisters were there and it was like about him and his sisters growing up. And she gets through this whole beautiful story and like about their time and then coming over. And my grandpa's reaction was like, oh, so he's an illegal immigrant. And my aunt's like, where did you get that? Like, that's not at all what I was saying. And it's like, and then I just like said, I was like, Papa, no, like, this is not like he and I are cool, but we have like, we're cool because it's a miracle he still loves me because we butt heads all the time. But like, I just like, Pop, no, like,
oh no, Papa.
Like,
Papa, no.
First of all, like, no, like this is not like one, just because like white people immigrated or are like products of immigration. He's like, well, I was born here. I was like, yeah, but your ancestors were not. Like, this is not like how it was. And I was like, just like him, like he also came to America. People come to America legally too. Like, it's not just one or the other. And like, you can't just make an assumption because someone is from one country that you are not as familiar with. That does not mean that they're like, and he's like this like lovely citizen who has this amazing, like, he has built a life here. He is doing like all these things. My aunt had this beautiful story, and all my papa took from that was like, oh, so like
Eagles.
yeah, and it's just one of those. It's like, and he's listening to his daughter, and so I'm just like I don't know. It's just like kind of blows my mind sometimes because even though he's older, he's been around so many different people and so many different generations, and we've all talked to him about stuff, and he's met people who are different, who are like, like I feel like he's had enough experiences where like I get when it's people who have had no experiences and they've been fully sheltered and they have these assumptions that just built in, but like California is too diverse. The Central Valley is too diverse to think that way. Like it's just,
I don't know. Every time I drive to Palm Springs and I pass the Trump flags, I'm always just like, damn, these crazies are still out here. So,
dude, those are crazy, right? Like that's still a thing. How's that still a thing?
I'm like, yo, like we are a year in to a new person. Like, what? Like, y'all.
Yeah. So one of my buddies from the Central Valley, he married a white woman, a Caucasian American, right? And he would tell me about their family gatherings and some of the questions they asked. And I think he was telling a story about how his family immigrated during the Vietnam War. And then at the end of the conversation, I think his father-in-law asked him like, "So, do they speak English?" I was like, "Come on, man, dude. But the Vietnam War has been a long time, you know."
Yeah.
I mean, it's those little microaggressions, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I took Jerome to my friend, his parents' house for Thanksgiving last year, and their dad is like super old and white and like he amazing person, love him to pieces, but like said some pretty offensive things at the Thanksgiving table, you know.
Do spill the tea.
Well, yeah, like you guys are from China, right? Or like where are you guys from? and it's like those microaggressions, but it's also like I don't know, like you're just old and senile, you know.
Yeah.
Like in the episode of King of the Hill where they meet Khan for the first time and they ask him like, "Hey, where are you from?" He's like, he says Laos, and he's like, "Oh no, I think Boomhauer or Bill asked him like, are you Chinese or Japanese?" And he's like, Laotian. It's like, so there's that Chinese or Japanese, you know. Even that shows,
sounds right.
Yeah, even that shows about like, I'm about to say rednecks, even though that's colorism within the Caucasian community. Is just like
that's more
pretty
classism,
woke, yeah.
I feel like. But like,
we got rednecks in my club.
But it's just so true. Like sometimes when I tell people like, "Oh yeah, my parents and family are mainly from Laos," and like, "Oh, where's Laos?" I'm like, "Oh, it's a Southeast Asian country." Like, "Oh, is it like by China?" I was like, "It's no, it's like Thailand." They're like, "Oh, I know Thailand, of course, because Thailand is infamous."
Yeah, there's like 3 groups that people know and don't realize. Like, I mean, if you look at a map, like Asia's not a small area. Like, you know, like I don't know. There's a lot included in that.
Yeah, but I totally get that. That is a very millennial thing too. Like I grew up and I could swear that there was only Chinese people. That was like all the Asians that there was Chinese people. And then you quickly learn if you go to school that there's Japanese people, there's Korean people, and they're called Asian people, and there's Asian Americans, and then the Asian Americans go through different struggles than, you know, first generation Asian immigrants, and it's like a whole thing. But I just like even the idea that I grew up thinking, especially in media, that like there was only Chinese people, and that's why Chinatown was around in the Bay Area in Oakland. You know, I was like, oh yeah, there's only one. it's just a very interesting concept. And it's like, I'm not the only person who grew up thinking that way, you know?
Yeah. It's okay. I know, I think I may have told both you guys this story before individually, but I'm just saying it again just for this podcast. So I was in an Uber pool. I don't know if they still do Uber pools anymore, because the whole pandemic thing.
COVID.
But it's where they pick up multiple passengers along the way and drop them off. So I was for some reason we started talking about World War II because the girl in the back seat said she was Jewish, and we started talking about World War II, and then she was talking, oh yeah, it sucks that they killed all my people, the Jews. And then I was like, all right, yeah, I know it sucks. Like it sucks what happened in World War II. A lot of people died. And then it's like, yeah, it's like, and me being a fucking Snapple bottle, I was like, hey, did you know like actually more Chinese people died in World War II than Jewish people? Because Jewish people weren't the only ones killed. It was also like also
gay
side
people
notes,
were also like
gay people.
yeah.
Yeah.
The pink triangle.
Mhm.
Yeah. There was all kind of groups getting murdered, okay? Everybody died during World War II. Like,
Dude, it was
Yeah.
not a good time.
Yeah, no, it was not hot at all. But then like, so it's like, yeah, a lot of Chinese people died. And then the girl goes, oh, it's not that bad because, they died because, the Japanese, murdered a lot of them. Not being racist, check the history books. But so
That what I was cringing on of the like it was her reaction.
it actually really happened. And she's like, oh, it's not that bad because they did it to themselves. And I was like,
Wait,
think about
what?
it. I was like, what? And then she's like, oh, they did it to themselves, so it doesn't really count.
Who
So
did
more
it to
Jewish.
themselves?
That's what I was asking her. And then when I got out of the car, I was thinking in my head, I was like, oh, she meant the Japanese and Chinese people are the same people because they did it to themselves. And it's like, fuck.
is
That
she
girl.
kamikazes or something?
No, okay. So when she said, I'm assuming this is what she said because I didn't think about it until I got out of the car, which is a phrase called the width of the staircase. I don't know the original French term.
The
But it's
width
like-
of the staircase? I've not heard
I think it's
that.
called the width of the staircase is when you like, because back in the day, I think in France, all the upper class people would have 2-story houses. So they put all the parties in the second story. So somebody would say something witty and you don't have a comeback, but you can't think of anything until you walk down the staircase and you're like, I should have said that.
Oh, I like that. That's cool.
You have to find the original French translation, but I don't know what it is. But I was thinking about, like, because she meant that the Japanese people killing Chinese people during World War II wasn't as bad because she clumped Japanese and Chinese as the same ethnic group.
People. Got it.
It'd be like, I think she saw it as like a civil war of some sort.
Well,
Yeah.
technically, wouldn't the German people extinguishing the Jewish people be this like more the Civil War because they were Jewish Germans / it was like people in the countries that they were already going through
They were
and
already there.
yeah, they were they didn't go like they didn't go to Jerusalem and kill her like I mean maybe they eventually but like they killed a bunch of people where they were and then hunted down certain groups within each country that they conquered and they were just trying to take over the whole freaking world like they weren't necessarily just going after like one group that like got recorded for sure because that was definitely a terrible thing but like they went after a lot of groups. It was like they were not good people. Like they were kind of assholes.
The
all
Nazis,
over.
not the German people.
Yes,
The
agreed.
Nazis were bad people.
Yeah.
Oh my
not
God,
the
agreed.
German people. we're
Yeah.
gonna clarify this.
Well, totally. So
Yeah.
okay, so my dad's side, my great grandma is German. She was from Germany, and she came here a little bit before World War I happened. She like such a like sexist thing. She had a fiance. She was about to get married, like really close to her wedding day, and something happened. It was like a plane crash or something, but he died, and she was just heartbroken. And her dad did not know what to do with her. And her sister lived out in California, and he's like, I'm just going to ship her off to California so I don't have to deal with this like crying mess all the time. So he did. And my great grandma came out here, and thankfully she did because like she basically missed the world wars. She like just missed World War One. And she like met and fell in love with my great grandpa. And they didn't really like speak the same language, but they worked at like apparently my great grandma's sister was like in the Central Valley, so she ended up here. And that's how like my grandma was born. And like they were super German for sure. They grew up like, you know, very much in the German culture because my grandma was straight from Germany. But they eventually weren't allowed to speak German or like do anything German anymore because like they were speaking German out in like a grocery store or something. It was like two little girls, like my grandma and her sister, but someone heard them and called them Nazis. And my great grandma was so offended, like that, you know, she didn't want any, like none of her family wanted anything to do with the Nazi party. They were very against them, even though they were German.
Totally.
And so they forbid it. And then they never spoke, like they dropped all like parts of their ancestry. Like they dropped the language. They had like my great grandma learned to speak English completely. Like they were done with it. And my grandma had a similar moment of like before the Nazis took over. You know how like the Nazis, the swastika was originally like went the other way and it was a Buddhist symbol. Before it was like the swastika, my grandma had this like belt or something that was like the opposite of the swastika, but it looked too much like a swastika. And she went to visit her family finally in Germany for the first time, but that was when the start of like the Nazi party had taken over, and they saw it and they were like, take that belt off. And she's like, okay, like totally, you know, she was like young and like had no idea what like they meant, and like gave it to them and they threw it in the fire and were like, you know, this is like, this party's taking over. We don't agree with this. And like, it's super interesting because like, yeah, I agree. Like not all German people, but like, it's crazy. It just started in Germany. And that's interesting too, how we're so good at distinguishing, like even to this day, like we distinguish like the Nazi party from Germany. But then like COVID hit and it's like the Chinese virus or whatever Trump was saying. Like, you know what I mean? Like some people are good about like distinguishing. Some people are like, I don't know. But I also think that comes to play in like the hobby thing that we were talking about. Like originally, like I feel like depending on your personality, like some things like Eric was saying, like in, you know, his high school days of like, because of his culture, then it became like, even though that's not actually his culture, but because it was like seen enough as his culture, that it became like acceptable. I think it's like there's like a lot of pretty privilege and there's a lot of like I don't know if there's the term, but I would say cool privilege of people who are just like seen as like cooler, that can pull off being super nerdy, and it's not nerdy like whatever. And not all like hobbies are nerdy. Like there are some hobbies that are like cool, but like I can't name some.
I think that's the difference, you know, like nerdy stuff is in.
Yeah.
I feel like I see little like backpacks and weird shit all the time that like I'd only find at like a Hot Topic or like fucking
Totally.
Hobbies or whatever that store was. And I'm like, yo, like we used to rock some of this shit, but like only in certain environments. And now I just see people strolling down the street, not giving a fuck. Like Crocs, you know?
Right.
Like I feel like Crocs were not like I thought they weren't a thing, and then I am like, wow, okay, I missed them. I missed the train. This is like, you know, they're like Uggs now, you know.
Right, dude. Disney too. Like Disney used to be like for the kids at some point, and like, you know, it was always kind of like acceptable for the adults, but it wasn't like the adults thing. By the time our generation came around, like, man, like some of these like people our age that we went to school with, I feel like they're like practically leaving their kids at home and going to Disneyland.
Yeah, dude, fuck them kids, dude. Yeah, I can get my Mickey experience.
Oh my god. No, you're completely right. We just went to Disney World like 2 weeks ago. It was 2 weeks ago for Thanksgiving.
How was that?
It was great. We went to Epcot and Animal Kingdom. So it was super fun, but it was just like Epcot was definitely for the adults. Like you're going to different countries, you're drinking in each country, eating in each country. Like I was like, this is fucking amazing. You know? Like Norway to Mexico but then it's like kind of that old school American racism where it's like, oh, here's China, which is also Japan, and
what?
Because it's like Epcot has like different country like areas.
Yeah.
It's like China, but then it's like Japan. It's like there's a Japan section there. You know, it's like trying to fit all the Asian countries into like one area.
The irony of this conversation and that being a real thing.
Dude, 100%. You know, and then you go to America and it's all like red, white, and blue. Looks like the fucking 1890s.
What do we have there? Hot dogs? Like what?
It's like so fucking dumb. It's all about like the post office and like it's. I was like,
it's about the post office.
I was like, are you fucking serious? The post office and is a cigar shop and like Southern barbecue. You
Is
know?
the cigars more of a Cuban thing?
I
Right?
guess.
Didn't we steal that?
Yeah, right.
I was just like, this is dumb. Mexico is dope. We got margaritas. And then you go to Norway and that's where like the Frozen ride is and like all that. It's like fun.
Where did tobacco originate from?
I mean, the natives used it. Like,
Yeah, but tobacco was used in England too, right?
I think so.
I
Before
feel like it was all
America.
over.
Because I
Yeah.
know the Chinese also use a lot of
I
tobacco.
can't remember if like
They're putting it on ships back to England from America.
yeah, that's what I couldn't remember which direction it came because I felt like the natives were already using it and then we just took it and used it differently.
No, I think I could be wrong. I have to look this up, but I think tobacco was a Middle Eastern thing.
Because I feel like it also could have been like I would believe that too, but like because who wasn't smoking back in the day, right? Wasn't it good for you and your baby at one point?
Right.
Uh,
But that's also an interesting topic. Like I know a lot of people from the Central Valley who are all like pro Disney, Disney princess. They go to Disneyland. But when you talk about like anime, like oh, anime isn't that like porn, or like no, for real. Like some people
there
like
is some sexism in anime sometimes, but I also feel like there's some really cool anime.
It's just not just like it's just like people just have a different idea of what like they just it's just like they're all about one subculture and not about the other. Or like anime like that weird Japanese cartoons, but yet people are really into Disney.
Yeah, and then I know people that are into both. You know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they just get the best of everything because there's a lot of crossover there now.
Well, there's a lot of variety in both too.
Yeah. Like you ain't no Disney princess, you on EBT, bitch.
Eric's coming for you.
But it's just like, yeah, I mean, even within like the rise of nerd culture, there's still different like animosity between each culture or gatekeeping. That's a really big thing with nerd culture. Even now, like there's not only is there gatekeeping within the community, but there's gatekeeping with other communities, you know, like, oh, you enter this, then you can't be part of us. Or just stuff like that. Like why can't like two nerdy things be cool at the same time?
Yeah, why do they always have to compete?
Yeah. And there
That-
should be like everyone's got like so like we all have intersectional identities. We all have
Mhm.
intersectional like personality interests. Like there's like just because you like one thing doesn't mean you immediately like are excluded from another group, right? Like
I just think it's like a nerdy pissing contest. Like now that nerds have seen like the light of popularity, now that nerds have seen the light of popularity, now they want to be like, oh, my thing is cooler than your thing.
Yeah, I also think there's like I think there's a little bit more like economic business acumen to that. Like I think when we were younger, there was only a limited amount of content out there. So
Totally.
people kind of chose their camp, whether it's like a shonen camp, you know, where they just love shonens or whatever, or whether it's like more hardcore adult anime that's like super dark, and like you can like both, you know, like I love both. Like I love super dark stuff, I love the lighter fun stuff. Like Jeremy and I like a variety of different things, but I think we have so many options now to choose from that we can kind of feed into we can narrow into what our interests are. And we have kind of, you know, a lot to pick from versus back in the day, it was like, oh, I guess I'll just rewatch this season of X show, like, I don't know, Case Closed with Conan or something, you know, because this is clearly, this is what I'm into, and I clearly like there's no other anime like this out there, you know.
I really wasn't like exposed to anime until like right after high school, and I had this little emo boyfriend who was like obsessed, and he had his own like DVD collection because that's the only way I saw it was like on DVDs, and we would like play different ones and watch like some all the way through, and then some was like, oh, we gotta wait till the new season comes out to buy the DVD because it wasn't like available everywhere. And other than like the mainstream ones we talked about a little bit that like, you know, I saw growing up, of course, but like, yeah, like actual like real anime, like, and it had the like subtitles and stuff, like that was totally new to me until like Yeah, but it was cool. Like I dug certain ones, just like any genre. Like it's one of those like certain like it's hard for me to like totally exclude a genre because some people are like, oh, I like this, I don't like that. I'm like, how can you? And same with music. Like, how can you do that? Because like, there's good ones, there's not good ones, and I can't even say they're bad because like someone else is gonna love that shit. Like, you know, but there's ones I'm more drawn to than others, and how can you totally like dismiss a group without like trying it? But now with streaming, like we have so many options. Like, of course, people are getting more into shit, and I think that's cool. And seeing like different sides, or isn't like Korean drama a big thing now too? Like all the different like shows that we're now getting to see that are like, I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, like, but you know, back in the day we had like BitTorrent, so that's how we got all the episodes.
Yeah.
And
I wasn't like techie. Didn't know about this stuff till later.
yeah, it was. I don't know. It was a weird time. It was a weird time.
It was high school though. I feel like I was so out in high school because when I moved to LA, I like decided to come out of the closet. So I was very like free, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wore a t-shirt in high school that said "Damn right I'm gay." And it was like purple and it had two guys holding hands on it.
Oh,
So in your face, like so loud, you know. Um I don't know, it was such a interesting thing. Like, and then the things that happen after high school, like the things you find out about other people or professors or teachers or whatever.
yeah.
Like we had a teacher, like, or I had a teacher. So, but basically, like, I had him for history, and he used to request me, like, put me in his classes, and I fucking hated this guy. And I was like, I thought you hated me too, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I would get B's in his classes, whatever. But like, he would always call me out because I was gay, and then like, he ended up coming out of the closet like 3 years after I graduated from high school.
Of course you did.
And I was just like, dude, you used to like pick on me, bully me like so much. Like it's like hella crazy. Like obviously you graded my projects and my papers and you graded me harsher than like everybody else. Like what the fuck, you know? And
maybe if I give him a B, he would come out straight. That means I'm straight.
so totally. He literally, and then he messaged me like, I just want to apologize and, you know, let you know, like, I did treat you differently. And
He was jealous, dude.
yeah, he's like, you were so free. And like, at such a young age, you knew who you are. And like, I feel like I just didn't know who I am. And I was just like, wow, crazy. You're a human too. But also
Right.
public education. Like, what the
Yeah.
fuck is going on?
Do you think kids nowadays know who they are?
More so, I think they have the freedom we have the space more and the environment to know who we are in a different way.
And the awareness, like they're more of like they have the capability of like finding other people like themselves, like other groups. They have like the vocabulary for it. Like there's so many people who are just raised like even in our generation, but especially before us, like they were only in a like religious environment or were only in like their family. Like we didn't have that access to that kind of information and like get to decide like an aware decision of who you are. Cause like so many people have to find that out, like, or not decision, but you know what I mean? Like that recognition,
that awareness of like recognizing who you are, you know, and who you want to be. Right.
Yeah.
And who you want to share with the world and like living in your truth every day. Right. It's like it's a very different thing, you know, like getting to wake up and just be yourself every day compared to in high school where I felt like, you know, you're still yourself, but you're not fully yourself. I don't know. It's like you're still trying to figure out who you are and you're still testing the waters. And like now I think as, you know, we're almost 30 or in our 30s, it's like I have so much more. I'm empowered by who I am. You know, I'm confident in who I am. I know my values. I know what makes me tick. You know, I know what motivates me.
Yeah.
So it's such a different time in our lives compared to 15 years ago. It's like even just thinking back to high school, like there's certain aspects of my life that I definitely see that have not left. Like I'm still very social. I'm still very much an extrovert. I still very much like having a large group of friends that I really care about and like we like invest time with, But like I also see maturity in like having like kind of smaller circles of friends and knowing that you can have different types of friends and different groups of friends that you do different things with,
Yeah.
And that's okay like in adulthood. It's more than okay. It's actually great, and healthy.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, I guess before we dive into a fucking conversation about like movies and stuff, I think I'm gonna end this recording. If you guys want to have any last words about Pokemon, I guess porn or the high school.
Talks about porn for like 2 seconds. Like, oh my God.
Eric wants to bring it back. That's what his last
We're
words
bringing
are.
it back. We're bringing it back.
He's totally gonna jack off after this.
Hell yeah, baby. Hell yeah, brother.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go there.
No.
Go ahead.
Okay, final words. Ladies first. Go ahead.
Oh shit.
Well, isn't that reinforcing a negative stereotype?
Ooh, it's true. I can be a gentleman too, gentlemen.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's like that's like people who say like, "Oh, I don't hold the door open for anybody anymore." It's like, or you can hold it open for everybody.
Exactly. That's me too. I'm like, dude, forget chivalry. Like, we should just all be holding the door open no matter. I'm going to be offended if you're a man, a woman, a child. Like, you slam the door in my face. Like, that's not cool. But at the same time, I don't expect it from anybody. So, like, teamwork it, human kindness goes a long way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I have any real last words. I just think that I love when people nerd out. I feel like whatever our passion is, we have to follow it. And I feel like sometimes that's weird, but it's also kind of awesome. And I don't know if you can really outgrow any of your hobbies. I feel like hobbies are kind of something that we're always into in one way or another. We might like let go of them just like we outgrow anything, but I don't think that there's like an age limit or a time limit on anything. It just depends on what you're into and how long and how like, I don't know, hot that passion burns, like how much you're into it.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's like as we get older, we have to find fulfillment in our life, whatever that means to us as individuals. There is like a feeling I have where it's like nostalgia is definitely a part of our generation, like that millennial kind of just like we're going to always look back and have strong feelings about certain things that we grew up with, just like any generation would. But ours feel unique because they're unique to us, right? But I think it's nice to have the space to reflect back on those positive memories and have it be like not looked down upon or talk shit about or whatever, like it was in previous generations. Like we actually have that openness and that freedom to do that. And I think that's what makes our generation unique. And I'm hoping that we across the board can bring more of that understanding and empathy and kind of grounding nature, I guess, to everything from politics to policy to just, the earth around us in general. But yeah, I think that's it. Just more so like, this is super fun and it's always great having really passionate conversations about, growing up. Pokemon's the best. It's still the best.
Digimon's the best.
Digimon's I feel like Pokemon's like the real OG though.
Block.
I'm biased, man. It's like you don't know nothing unless you had an N64 with a little adder pack thing on the back that you could play. You could put your Pokemon game in, red or blue, or yellow, and you could connect it on Pokemon Stadium and play that shit on your quote unquote big screen. That was like 12 by 12 inches.
Okay, boomer.
I don't know. That sounded fancy to me.
It was super. Well, for the time, it was pretty fancy. Like 1998, 1999. I was doing big things. Or having Game Shark. You know,
Game Shark, or just but download ROMs,
my
you know,
God.
and emulators. Illegal stuff aside, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to start at an early age, have a conversation with yourself about who you are, who you want to be, because like even like Lance knows, like me now compared to me at 25 was a totally different person.
Yeah. I mean,
Oh my God.
I love you both, but like
It was that Eric was a different. I'm not saying I'm a different person, but like it was a different kind of like attitude and mentality. It was really arrogant. Like I just like look, but it's important to have these conversations now about who you are and who you want to be, and never be afraid to be yourself. And if the people around you don't accept you for who you are, then that's not their problem. I mean, that's not your problem. It's their problem. So you'll let your freak flag fly, and then you'll find your crowd. And but also respect other people's boundaries. Like don't do what people were doing at Redwood. Like respect people's boundaries when you're expressing yourself, because you have your own voice, but you don't want your voice to be louder than somebody else's for your own benefit. Don't grab butts.
Dude, there's some quote I just read. It was something about like, make your voice loud, but not so loud that it drowns out others. And I feel like that's so important because there's so many people that need to like tell their stories. And
That's communism, brother.
get out of here.
But that's also that's part of allyship too, right?
Yeah.
Like you have your voice, and especially if you have privilege in a situation, then you can elevate others' voices, and that's even better than lowering your voice to have their voice be heard. It's like, let's bring people up and let's
pass the mic.
Pass the mic, absolutely. Pass the mic with intention.
Sure. Definitely sounds like an intriguing conversation for next time. I'm gonna end this recording. Goodbye.